rather than have this wide range of payments starting here and ending here, what amortization does is it balances everything out, right? So it gives us one flat payment over the course of 30 years. So it's a mathematical calculation. It takes, all right, how much money do you owe each month? How much money is getting paid back? What are you continuously paying interest on? Because the principal that you pay back, you're no longer paying interest on. And it calculates this monthly to give us an average payment that payment is the same over 30 years. And that number for a 30-year loan with 5% interest rate would actually be $1,610.46. And if you have a amortization schedule, you can kind of look at it and see how the numbers look. Now, how they break down that 1046, the banks stack all the interest on the front, basically. So they start out with, oh, we're lending you money. We want to collect more interest up front and less interest, when the payment is lower. Because in reality, right, if you were to not balance it out, your interest would be a lot higher in the front end because you're borrowing a lot more money, and it'd be a lot less in 30 years because you're borrowing less money. So they structure the payments so that the interest is heavier up front and less in the back end. So the question I get all the time is an interest-only loan better than an amortization? Why would anybody want to do an interest-only loan? Well, you got to look at the market. So if you have an appreciating market, I'll give you an example here. What do you think about this? I live in New York. So my question is, how much did a brownstone cost 30 years ago? Brownstones now go for about $2 million. So a brownstone 30 years ago may have been $300,000, right? Give or take. So where do I make most of the money in an appreciating market? Is it by praying down the principal? Let's see. If I did that math, it took me 30 years to make $300,000. And that same 30 years, due to appreciation, I made $1.7 million. So if I could, save and make the payments more manageable with an interest-only payment in an appreciating market, it kind of makes sense. It actually might be a good move. You're not really giving up much. You're still making $1.7 million. And your payment is actually, in this case, you would save a little under $400 a month, right? The amortization payment would be $1,610, and your interest-only payment would be $1,250. So that's a good move. Now, if you're not in an appreciating market, you're in a market that hasn't appreciated and prices have stayed flat for 30 years, then it's probably not a good move to go interest only. Here's why. If you're in a place like Buffalo, where 30 years ago the properties were $25,000, I'm just throwing this out there, no offense to anybody in Buffalo, and 30 years later your property is now worth $30,000, guess what? Interest only may not be a good move. Why? Because you haven't made any money, right? You haven't paid down the principal at all. You still owe $25,000, and the property's only worth $30,000. So you made $5,000. If you would have did the amortization, full amortization, all right, over 30 years, you would have actually paid off that debt. So, make a long story short, you have to determine what type of market you're in to see what is the best strategy to use. Okay? The last thing I'm going to touch on in this video is negative amortization. So, let's just say this interest payment, the standard interest payment was 5%. And now the bank says, well, we're going to allow you to do a minimum payment of 4% based on 4% interest. We're going to use an interest-only example here just to keep it simple. So in order to pay back the interest to the bank, we'd have to make a payment of $1,250 a month. Okay, $1,250 a month. We'd have to make that payment. But the bank says we're going to give you a minimum payment of at 4%, which would be roughly $12,000 a year or $1,000 a month, right? So they'll say, listen, we know you didn't make the interest payment. Don't worry about it. We're going to take that $250 and we're going to add it back to the principal. Okay, so you owed us $300,000. You didn't make the payment. You made the minimum payment of $1,000 instead of the $1,250. We're going to take the $250 difference and we're going to add it back to the $300,000. So now, instead of you owing us the $300,000, you now owe us $300,250. And the next payment you make, it does the same thing. So now what happens is that your minimum payments start to go up, because what they don't tell you is that they're calculating in that $250 and that you're borrowing it for 30 years. I don't know if you fully get that. So it's not just, all right, it's $250. They're billing me $250 and I'm paying 15% on that. You're paying 5%. They're basically saying you're adding that $250 to your balance, and they're gonna basically calculate the cost of that $250 over the course of 30 years. So it's 5%, 30 years of interest that get piled back on, which increases the payment. Like, negative amortization is not a great thing. People use reverse mortgages, and that's really what it is. It's a negative amortization loan. But I get it for seniors that, they have equity and they don't have, they're cash poor, equity rich. I get that part. But if you don't have equity in your home and you're jumping on a negative amortization loan, it's a horrible move. I'm telling you. I've heard people that had these loans in the crisis and they said my payment just kept going up, 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 up. Yes, because they were taking the minimum payment, negative amortization. They were adding that $250 back to the loan, and the principal balance just kept going up, 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 and up. Okay? I just gave you a crash course on amortization. Okay? This is not easy stuff. I told you it was going to get a little bit more complex. If you have to watch this video again, please do so. Amortization, if used correctly, is an excellent tool. And interest only is a great payment method. I love interest only because with interest only, you can create your own amortization schedule. And here's how. If you can get an interest only loan, take it. Why? Because it cuts your minimum payment down. Okay, if you're disciplined enough to put the extra $400 on that payment every single month, you'll pay off your loan just like you had a normal amortization. Right? That's a beautiful thing. In addition to that, you can actually accelerate the payments by paying maybe $2,000 a month, and you can pay off your house even faster. Right? Moreover, because it affects the principal payment directly, you're not stuck on an amortization schedule that the banks put you on, where your interest rate moves. So your payment up front is interest, and then it drops. If you're disciplined enough, you can take the interest only payment, and then your extra goes straight to the principal. What does that actually do? It now actually lowers your interest only payment, because it makes it even less, and it accelerates the loan. So I can show you mathematically. It's a great tool. I highly recommend using interest only loans in that way, not to just make the regular payment, but to continue to add to it to help accelerate and pay off your homes even faster. And mathematically, you'll see the amount of equity you'll be able to build rather quickly using this method and staying disciplined doing it. All right. G. Kelly Dixon, Mogul Ambition.